Welcome back, everyone, and good morning. I hope you're all having a great start to your Saturday. Cardano. Over the past 24 hours, the market has pretty much played out the way we expected, although it did take a bit of time for that afternoon balance to really settle in, especially with all the news flowing through the market. There was definitely some volatility and whiplash along the way, and that's something we need to keep in mind as we break everything down today. So let's take a step back and look at the bigger picture, starting with where Cardano 8A currently stands. Right now, 80 is sitting around 2643, and yesterday we actually saw price come down and retest the lows from Thursday. This content is for informational and educational purposes only, and should not be considered financial, investment, or trading advice. I am not a licensed financial advisor, and nothing in this video should be interpreted as a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any cryptocurrency or asset. The cryptocurrency market is highly volatile and involves significant risk, and you should always do your own research and consult with a qualified financial professional before making any investment decisions. Any opinions expressed are based on personal analysis and are subject to change without notice. Past performance is not indicative of future results, and you are solely responsible for your own financial decisions. The good news is that we got a solid bounce from that level, which shows there is still some demand down there. But at the same time, we also saw downside pressure come back into the market following broader news, particularly tied to Bitcoin. BTC once again attempted to recover and push back up toward that 71.1K level, but it wasn't quite able to get there during the overnight session, which tells us momentum is still somewhat limited right now. If we shift over and look at the charts like we discussed previously, we saw that overseas selling pressure come in, followed by an early to midday drop, not just in ADA, but across the broader crypto market. Of course, what we want to see is a strong rally and a clean recovery into higher price levels, but right now the market is still being compressed. On the 1-hour time frame, ADA is effectively being sandwiched below the 200 EMA, and at the same time, it's also struggling under the 20 EMA, which is acting as short-term resistance. When we zoom out to the daily chart, the situation doesn't improve much, as ADA is still trading below the 20-day moving average. We did attempt to push above that level during today's daily candle, but we faced rejection, which means that resistance is still very much in control for now. As we head further into the weekend, a lot of what happens next is going to depend heavily on news flow and overall market sentiment. A major factor here is Bitcoin, because BTC needs to hold its structure. What we absolutely do not want to see is Bitcoin breaking down, forming a lower low, or even retesting the bottom of its current trend, because that would likely bring additional downside pressure across the entire crypto market heading into next week. Now, shifting over to the macro side, the news has been a huge driver recently. Between various comments and developments, we saw the S&P 500 already move nearly 1% even before major news confirmations, and then rally around 1.8% from its lows, adding roughly $900 billion in market cap. With traditional markets now closed until Monday, it gives us a clearer idea of just how much weight this news is carrying, not only in equities, but also in crypto, which continues to mirror that same movement and timeline very closely. Over the weekend, we've also seen additional developments, including reports that the United States is allowing the sale of some Iranian oil and considering easing restrictions to help increase supply. This is being positioned as a way to manage and potentially reduce the growing energy crisis, and if that narrative continues to build, it could actually bring some positivity and upward momentum into the markets next week. That said, nothing is guaranteed, especially over a weekend where headlines can shift sentiment very quickly in either direction. Yesterday overall was still a rough day, with the stock market dragging sentiment lower and roughly $1 trillion in value being erased since the open. The biggest theme we're seeing right now is simple: market fatigue. You can feel it across the board. Volume is dropping, participation is slowing down, and every time we attempt a rally, it tends to get sold into fairly quickly. It's not the most exciting environment, but it is a very real and important phase in market cycles. On a more positive note, there was some encouraging regulatory news as Senators reached a deal with the White House to resolve the ongoing crypto stablecoin yield dispute with banks. This shows Cardano that progress is still being made behind the scenes, which is something the industry really needs. Ideally, we would also like to see the Clarity Act finalized and signed into law at some point this year, preferably sooner rather than later, as that could provide the regulatory certainty needed to unlock the next major phase of growth in the crypto space. Another key metric worth paying attention to is open interest across the crypto market, which has been declining over the past 5 days. As the market cools off and volume decreases, we're seeing fewer leveraged bets being placed, which reflects a more cautious and hesitant environment among traders. And honestly, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Markets don't need to move all at once, and if we look back at previous instances where momentum stalled, we often saw sharp pullbacks shortly after. So, a period of consolidation and reduced activity can actually help build a stronger foundation for the next move. For now, we are clearly in a low-volume weekend environment, and the key focus is going to be whether incoming news acts as a catalyst for recovery or creates additional downside pressure. We'll have to see how things develop as the day unfolds. But that's where we currently stand. I appreciate all of you for tuning in. Hope you have an amazing day. And if you found this helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts down in the comments below. I'll catch you guys in the next one.